Good morning. I'm born to be free. This is Mark Putrino, your guide into the market. How are you today, Marcus?
I'm good. How are you?
Wonderful.
All right. What's going
I've been
on?
looking at a stock I wanted to tell you about. It's called J, symbol J. It's been in a nice range from 114 to 141 for the last since April of last year.
Jacob Solutions.
Yeah. I was just typing in random symbols the other day and come across this. I mean, that's a pretty big range.
Yeah, well, let's check this out. I mean, look at where it is. It's right up around here.
Yeah.
Right? Where we got resistance before.
You've looked at this?
Oh, yeah. Most of the stocks I've looked at, especially when they're a one symbol stock, because sometimes when I'm looking through, I just like pick random symbols,
Yeah.
And I, so it's a big company too. But we could see, our same things that we look at. So look at that. Look at where it found support.
Yeah.
Right at this former resistance level.
It is. Today is the November 13th section there, Maru.
All right. So anyway, interesting story here. Elf stock falls after short seller Spruce Point alleges ties to defunct sex cult.
Holy smokes.
How's that for a story for Monday?
That's wow.
All right, so let's see. Elf Beauty. Let's just see what they look like. Sex sells, man. Not really doing much to the stock this morning, but let's see what they have to say. So these guys, Spruce Point, they're a pretty well-known short seller. Mm-hmm. And I guess kind of the way you can look at it is they're kind of like, I guess what you would call like a forensic accountant. They go through the numbers so well. Like a lot of short sellers of this style, they might just be short 2 or 3 companies, and that's it. It's not like they're shorting 50 different things. All right, so let's just see what we got here. The NXIVM, now being someone so that's got to be Latin, right? Does anyone know Latin? Is that like?
No, I do not. But I would like the chat to like and subscribe and share the stream. Go ahead, Mark.
The cult's leader, Keith Raniere, was sentenced to, 120 years in prison. So this is for real, then. Racketeering, sex trafficking. Spruce Point has grave concerns about Elf Beauty. So this is a cult. Now, how is the cult tied into the company? Wow. Spruce Point founder, and notice the spelling mistake, Chef Shea, investment officer. And it actually, this is when you're talking about a specific person, the title should be capitalized. If you're just saying the chief investment officer, then it's not capitalized. But if you're saying, the president of the United States, it's president is not capitalized. But if you're saying President Biden, then president is capitalized. So this here should be capitalized, chief investment officer. The stock has gained 71% year to date. Well, that doesn't sound bad. So anyway, I came and I looked, and here is their report, which is available. So then they kind of just go through the company. Now, I don't really, I don't know a lot about this company, but I do know that they're like a beauty company. I think they make like, cosmetics. Movers and shakers heavily embrace the concept of spreading joy. Okay. All right. I'm not going to spend our whole hour on this, but this is pretty freaking good stuff right here.
That's crazy.
Close ties to the upper echelon of the cult.
Coaches and recruiters.
Jeez.
Wow. I wonder how you get that gig.
Elsa's had a share of scandals, including sanctioned products from North Korea. Wow. They've committed all kinds of fraud. Any damage to our reputation, blah, 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 blah. So these are the guys. There was a different one, Hindenburg, that exposed the icon.
Yeah.
Thing. So These guys are not going to throw out in a report like this where they can just completely get wow, unbelievable. They're not going to just fire this all out if there's not something to it, because they would just get sued for defamation.
No way. For real? That's terrible.
What's that?
This thing that Heather put in here. You see this?
Yeah, there's some sick. Look at that. So 80% of the company is female. I guess that makes sense if it's like a quote unquote beauty company. Elf's sales are highly dependent on retail channel. So basically, what they're saying is, all right, well, these guys are sleazebags, and that's okay because it's not against the law. But this is such bad publicity that if this gets out, it's like, hey, if your major customers are women, and you find out the company is sex trafficking women, a lot of the women's groups might not be so keen on buying the product. So I don't think they're alleging illegality. I think they're alleging just the sleaziness is not going to be a good marketing opportunity.
Right.
Allison Mack has been sentenced to 3 years in prison. Barred from contact. So there's another one. Movers.
Well, they were just having a good time in that picture, boy.
It's like, Jesus. Well, when I was single, it's like I had a hard time finding even a date, and you get these sleazebags here, get all these like, so let's just go start a sex cult.
Like, I mean, how do you come up with that, man? I mean, for real.
Porter's social media private indicates continued support. I am an expert in the science of joy. My clients include the CEO of the sex. All right. Brandon Porter, MD, PhD, free speech, proponent of whatever. Proponent speak. Well, you know what? This is not new. They've had these like free love cults going all the way back to the beginning of history. All right. Anyway, movers and shakers. I'm going to be reading more about this afternoon.
Oh, absolutely.
Have people experience more joy in life? Well, it's kind of hard to disagree with that. All right. Well, anyway, so I guess that's after that story. Really don't need to report on much.
No.
Built in. Oh, look at this. Renegade badass spirit in our veins. Bright, sassy badass. Let's look at their sales. Oh, okay. So look. So all right. So this is Elf. So they. Oh, actually, no. I'm sorry. This is their competitors. So they compare their self to their competitors. A lot of research in Wall Street is done by really just basic peer comparison. Mm-hmm. Take company A and company B, and if they do the same thing, it's like, all right, well, company B is a lower PE, so it's lower value. All right, so let's check this out now. There's this going on in the market right now. What I think is you could call like a friggin' flight to safety, right? So what are we doing this morning? We're pretty flat. All right, so here's our S&P. But this is what I kind of want to focus on, right? Look at our tech sector. So tech is like way overbought, and it's getting to resistance. I mean, look at that move there. So that's a really, this is the type of stuff that happens at the beginning of trends and at the end of trends. Now, we're seeing some similar action here as to what we were seeing at the end of 21. Now, so check this out. So this is the NASDAQ 100, the Qs, right? So every stock in here is weighted by market cap. So Microsoft, Apple are the biggest. Let me go look at this here. Invesco, QQQs. So remember, there's 100 stocks in this. That's why it's called the NASDAQ 100. And your top 10 holdings between Apple and Microsoft, that's 21%, or actually like it's 22%. So you got 100 companies and you have 2 of them that compose over 20% of the industry. And then if you add in Amazon and Nvidia, you got 4 companies that make up 30% of this 100 stock benchmark. I call it benchmark. That's more it's I should really call it an indice, but benchmark is because some companies compare their some investors compare their performance to it. So they're the benchmark. Anyway, the point is most of these companies could be going down. And if these guys are going up by enough, it's going to make the broad benchmark move higher just by the math. Now, if we look at the Qs, see what's going on. It's just been like ripping higher and we're overbought. Now, if we look at the ETF that has all the stocks at the same weight in the NASDAQ 100, every stock is 1%. Look at this. This has actually been going down. So this shows you that most stocks in the NASDAQ 100, at least, are actually going down. So this, because of the way the benchmark is constructed, is masking some of this underlying weakness. Now, if we go back to the end of 2021, which was when that 12-year long or 10-year long or whatever you want to say rally ended. I mean, there was the COVID crash, but from a market point of view, that was
very small.
Dude, check this out. So COVID's coming back, man. My 2 cousins have it. They're each in high school, right? My cousin's daughters, and then my mother-in-law has it, and she's out in an old folks' home out in Arizona.
That's
so
terrible.
Yeah, I guess it's making its rounds again. Well, as we start heading into the election season, you'll probably hear a lot more about it. Oh, stay at home, mail-in ballots, blah blah blah.
I know, right?
You know, it's racist to have to show your ID.
It is, though. It's here to stay. It'll never go away. It's something that we'll be dealing with forever.
If you can't get your ass out of the house and get down to vote, it's like, I mean, I suppose if you're real like elderly and and whatever, you have a hard time getting around, that's one thing. But if you're just lazy,
You know what drives me crazy is in Florida, you have to have a driver's license to vote. It's just that simple, or some form of registered ID. And it's been here forever. We have clean elections here in Florida since 2000, and nobody ever questions it. And you have this voter ID thing that's a problem, and it just doesn't make any sense. The quick fix would be for the government just to give everybody an ID.
Well, I can't understand how when our president compared showing your ID at the polls to Jim Crow, where he said this is like Jim Eagle, like having to show your ID at the poll is worse than being lynched, And
That's
for the
foolish.
president of the United States to say something like that is just so friggin' disgraceful. So, all right, so Martin Luther King gave his life for nothing. Like there was no civil rights movement in the 50s and the 60s.
Right.
Compare having to show your ID to Jim Crow laws. I mean, and no one calls the idiot out on it. All right, anyway, let me go back to this before I get too angry, because between the sex cult and me getting angry, you don't know what the hell's going on over here. What's going to happen over here this morning.
It could go out of bounds this morning, folks.
All right. So anyway, so here's the S&P 500. This is the end of 2021. Now notice where we peaked. Very, very, very top of the market. Went from, say, December 27th to, say, January 4th. All right. Very, very, very peak. Now, let's go look at the NASDAQ 100. That has all of the stocks weighted by market cap. Where did this peak? All right. So here we go back to 2021. Peaked at pretty much the same time. It's the same kind of a deal, right? The S&P 500 has 500 stocks. Microsoft and Apple are 13%. So what you got going on here is money is just kind of flowing out of these little companies and going into these big companies. And this is the type of thing that happens at the end of a rally. So now let's look at the ETF that has the equal weighting for the shares going back to 2021, and look at where this peaked. So this peaked in November. All right. So fully like a month and a few weeks before the broad market peak, this peak. So this started to show us most of the stocks in the market were going lower. It's just that we have these the behemoths or whatever they call them now, the Magnificent Seven, which is pretty darn stupid.
It is.
But so the market really started to fall apart around here. All right. But this is 100 stocks, maybe 80 of them are going lower, maybe 90 of them are going lower, but 10 of them are moving higher. And because of the construction of the benchmark, it's pulling us higher. So if we were to look at the equal weighted ETF, we could see that the weakness in the market really started to kind of show itself in about a month before things peak. Things don't just, peak out of the blue. The market crashes surprise some people, but they don't surprise other people. Like the signs were kind of apparent that this was coming. We had all that inflation data coming from the ISM, where remember we looked at the reports, like every single commodity they followed was higher. So you don't need to be a world-renowned economist, Nobel Prize winning economist, to be like, oh, every single commodity these guys follows is moving higher. Gee, that could mean that there's inflation, right? So we don't, I was out on the trails yesterday and I ran into one of my neighbors. He was walking his dog. He's got a 13-year-old English bulldog named Fuji, who poor Fuji's having a hard time getting around. But, he knows I'm in the market. So he was like, oh, do you ever listen to this guy on Bloomberg, or do you ever listen to that guy on this station or whatever? And I'm like, nah, I really don't. There's really very few people I listen to, because over the years, I've just found that I can do this better if I just rely on my own opinion. And, it's the opinion, like Wall Street research is an entertainment industry, if you think about it. A lot of the research, as we know, is tainted because of the investment banking relationship, so you can't really trust it. And if you're an analyst, here's the thing: if you're an analyst that works on a broker dealer, right, you can't just go to work every day and do nothing.
Right.
Well, I mean, you can for a while, I suppose, but eventually, like, you got to be able to say, oh, hey, what'd you do today? Oh, I wrote a research report on Boeing. So now we have something that we can call up our clients and say, hey, would you like to see our Boeing report? Oh, by the way, if you want to give us some trades so we can get some commissions, feel free. So by putting out this research, it gives them an excuse to get in, it has an excuse to call their clients. So they're the broker dealer side of the market, the sell side of the market, as they call it, the side that gets commissions. They have to come up with products. The buy side of the market they're the ones who have to come up with ideas, because they're the ones who actually do the managing of the money. So the whole Wall Street buy side, sell side thing is a very different culture, right? So as a matter of fact, that's what when I talked to Heather's to Chloe, Heather's stepdaughter. That's one of the things I told her about. Now, obviously, at her age, she's so young, she doesn't really know this stuff, but it's a different culture. The broker dealer side, what we call the sell side, is you're the side you're there to, get commissions, you entertain the clients, you try to give them research, blah, 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 blah. The buy side of the market is the people that do the managing of the money. So it's a different mindset. Now, not that one's better than the other, but it's a different thing. Like if your job is to be a buy side trader, so say you're trading for a hedge fund, your job is in a lot of ways, a lot more cerebral than if you're say a sales trader. It's a whole different skill set. A sales trader is the traders who work on the sell side at the broker dealers, and it's their jobs to call around and try to get business. You're the Goldman Sachs sales trader. Oh, hey, let's call up Mark over at whatever firm he's at and tell him we just put out this new great Boeing research report. Oh, okay, Mark, you want to see the report? Yeah, sure. Send over. Oh, anything else I can keep an eye on for you today? Are you looking at this? Are you looking at that? So they're out there trying to raise business. That's why their name is sales trader. And then eventually, me being the buy side trader, if I say, yeah, dude, go buy me 1,000,000 shares of Boeing, the sales trader in turn relays that to the person at Goldman Sachs who is the Boeing market maker. And their job in the sell side, you basically have two types of traders. You got your sales traders and you got your market makers or position traders. Market makers, position traders is kind of it's the same thing. Um, but the sales trader's job is to get the business from the buy side trader, and then the sales trader is supposed to give that order to the market maker, and the market maker is supposed to try to get the best price they possibly can. So the buy side trader is impressed and says, "Okay, I'll give you guys more business."
Got a question from Ahmed on Boeing. If you give him your opinion, please.
Boeing Company. And so what do we got? Some news this morning. Emirates Airlines order $52 billion worth of jets. Well, I would say we broke pretty clear support here. Resistance. So you see here how what was support back here, right? Turn into resistance over here. So this is because of our what? Our buyer's remorse. People bought back here, and then the price goes lower, and a lot of them are like, I shouldn't have bought it. If it gets back to my price, I'm gonna sell to get out at break even. So you get remorseful buyers who, when the price finally gets back up, they go to sell. If you get enough of these remorseful buyers placing sell orders, the level that was support can turn into resistance. So now, because of this news, we're trading right in the middle of this price range here. I'm going to make this red. So on the upside, I would be looking for resistance around 209, the former support level. And on the downside, I would be looking for support around 197. So right now, as you can see, we could revisit this later, or tomorrow after the market opens, but so we're pretty much right in the middle of the range here. So I would suspect that this is what's going on right now. So Boeing announces this news. Now, all these institutional investment teams that their firms have money invested in Boeing right now are probably going through the numbers and updating their models and saying, how is this going to affect the bottom line and so forth and so on. If the news is as good as it apparently seems, then what probably will happen is it looks like in the pre-market's trading around 203, so that's up about $6. So it'll probably stay right around there, or maybe even kind of slightly trend higher into the close. If the news isn't as good as it seems, people start selling, and then that drives us lower. And that usually happens around like 10 or 10:30, because that's when the research is done. And that's when the teams can get together and be like, okay, well, we think this news is it's not as good as it seems. It sounds good on the headlines, but it's really not going to affect the bottom line. Let's take advantage of this weakness and let's start selling. So I would say let's look for a move somewhere around like 10 or 10:30. It would be pretty if the news is good, as good as it appears, it'll probably end up closing somewhere around 204 or higher. If it's not as good as it seems, it'll end up moving lower, and that break will probably happen somewhere around like 10 or 10:30. And you just got to understand in the Wall Street institutional world, the traders get in early. They're in like 7. The analysts typically come in around like 8 or 8:30. So by the time the analysts get together and have their, go through their models and read the reports and maybe listen to it if there's a call, that's a big part of it too, is knowing when there's a call, because things can move based on what they say on the call. But this isn't an earnings report, so I don't know if they're going to have a call on it. See, this financial terms are not disclosed. So, wait, this is Royal Jordanian. When they say terms are not disclosed, so what is this? Is this a different one? Emirates?
Wow, Boeing having a good day.
Well, for now.
Yeah, right.
Industry insiders reveal that Emirates had already signed the remarkable deal for 90 777X jets. But let's go take a look at the Boeing site. Because if they don't disclose the terms of the deal, it's like, then, it's like the deal could suck. I mean,
right.
It's like, but maybe there's a reason for them. All right, let's see here. Presentation, Q3 results. First thing we do is check the date, October 25th. All right, so this isn't that long ago. I like the blue. All right, now look at this, right? This is what we talk about. When things are good, the numbers are right up front. So here we go. Operating margin. And this is something that they want to show off because even though they're still losing money, they're losing a lot less. So, wow, they had a negative operating margin, 19%. Now it's down to 6%. These guys are going in the right direction. Revenue was up. So this is why they're showing this off. They lost money, but they lost a lot less than they had before. Delivered 105 airplanes. So 105 airplanes, I mean, they just got an order for 90. That's pretty darn big.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they're saying anything about investor news. Royal Air Max. So these guys ordered 2. So look at this. So there's a bunch of...
Wow, 30, 100 more.
They got a bunch of orders.
Man, that was wow.
Royal Jordanian. I wonder if let's see here.
Is Boeing in jets?
Probably. Backlog is 205 planes. Now, if I was I'd be thinking if I worked at Boeing, hey man, that would be a good time to go on strike.
Give me a job raise.
Yeah, right. Like our brothers over there at UAW
and UPS. And the poor FedEx drivers, the poor FedEx drivers are probably making about $13 an hour and they don't get overtime either.
Really?
It's crazy.
How could they not get overtime?
Man, well, I don't know. I'm sure they pay them overtime, but FedEx is really not run like UPS is. And those drivers make some serious coin.
They make money too. Come like around where I live, come Christmas time. That's when you notice all of a sudden come like November. It's like they stop leaving the packages in your mailbox and they start leaving them on like your front step.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Man. Yeah, absolutely.
Like all of a sudden it's like they knock on the door, like, oh, your package is here. But that's okay. I learned from being a garbage man that you should always tip your people. You tip your garbage man, you give your garbage man a good tip. You could leave a friggin' auto engine out there in the garbage can. They'll take it away. They'll just, pretend they don't see it. You don't tip them, they ain't taking that thing anywhere.
No. So Boeing's only 1.9% of jets.
All right. So anyway, yeah. So that's what I would be looking for there from a trading point of view. I'd be looking for this to make a break one way or another, starting like mid-morning-ish. So sounds like there's going to be a lot of news for people to go through. And remember, just because they're making big sales doesn't necessarily,
profits.
Yeah, because if they're losing money, that means they're losing money on every sale, even though well, maybe not every sale, but if they're losing money by getting more sales, they could potentially lose more money.
Right.
Right. So this is why it's going to take a while for the market to kind of really figure out, good, bad, or indifferent. TSN.
Oh, and Apple as well.
Man, you guys see the Giants? Man, they suck. God, terrible.
Man, I had Dak Prescott last night because all my team was like on bye week, so I had on my fantasy football. He threw up some numbers, boy. It was awesome.
It's just the Giants. Like, you can just see like on the sidelines, man. They're just the look on the guys' faces.
Well, they're just deflated.
It's like supposed to be New York, and I mean the Jets lost too, but at least they made it respectable.
Was
All right,
the
so
mayor there?
What's that?
Did they show the mayor ever showing up at the games?
No, he's too busy trying to cover up his ass now with his 25-year-old girlfriend.
He's done.
He's done. What an idiot. I mean, this goes back to one of these things that's self-evident. All right, forget politics. Forget if you're a Democrat or Republican or liberal or whatever. Okay, the mayor of New York City, one of the biggest cities in the world, okay, who are fundraisers? If you had a hedge fund and you wanted to bring in someone who's going to raise money, who are you going to bring in? You're going to bring in someone who's been around the block, someone who's got a lot of connections, someone that knows a lot of wealthy people. I'm friends with this very wealthy family. I can make a phone call, or I'm friends with the guy who runs this pension plan over at this company, So how do you get a 25-year-old young lady to be the senior fundraiser? She's 25. Who could she possibly know? You know what I'm saying? How could she know as many people as someone who's like, say, 50 and who's really plugged in?
Sometimes it's not who you know, it's who you blow.
All right, man. Watch vulgarity.
I'm sorry.
But point taken. So anyway, I don't even know what the latest is. He hired himself a defense attorney.
Well, it's really, I guess he gave Turkey a fast track to getting an embassy or something in New York City or something silly that really he didn't need to do.
You know what, dude? After my little trip down to New York to watch the Pitbull concert or to take my daughters to the Pitbull concert, it's just like New York is just it's not even the same city as when I worked there, 5 years ago, 6 years ago. There was this like section where the sidewalk was closed, and they got like the sheet or the plywood, kind of guiding you down I literally almost tripped on this guy. There was this guy sleeping on the ground. I mean, it's really, really sad. Well, anyway, there's nothing about it in the oh, here we go. Oh no, that's Tim Scott. Well, anyway,
we didn't look at Apple either, Mark.
Who's done?
Sorry, guys, we got off track. But Apple and then TSN.
All right, well, here's TSN, and I guess they reported earnings. So those earnings look pretty good. Falls after revenue miss, downbeat outlook. All right, so let's think about this. So the earnings beat, but the revenues missed. Revenue. So just trying to think if we could come up with some kind of reason for that.
I mean,
I'm just thinking, is it tied into inflation somehow?
I would think it has to be. I bought a pack of chicken yesterday for $22 for 6 chicken breasts. That's insane. That's a lot of money. And that was just at a Publix.
Yeah.
So, I see a lot of meat that's just sitting up because we're close to the beach, so I grocery shop like all the time. So, but the meat is just sitting up in there. You watch them take it out and get rid of it. So they may be losing a lot, not being able to sell it.
Well, yeah. See, that's what I'm wondering. I'm wondering if the reason why their earnings is up is just because they've had to raise prices, but they're selling. Well, I don't know. I'd have to go through the math, but so the earnings are up, but the revenue misses. All right. Anyway, from a trading point of view, though, what do? When stock is down, we look at former bottoms. Where was the former bottom? Right around 45.10. Where are we trading now? 45.35. Mm-hmm. So now this is the type of thing where if the news is not as bad as it seems on the headline, will probably get some kind of a reversal again around mid morning, but it is at support. So, that's what I'd be watching for this is a rebound off it. It's going to break one way or the other probably. And I would look mid morning, but we tend to find support at former bottoms. Then on the upside here, I'd be looking like right there, which is not, it's not that big of a range. You got to be careful of the scale here. So this is like 45.10 on the downside, and on the upside, like 46.30, I would call it. But yeah, so it turns out these numbers aren't as good as people think. Come mid morning, we'll probably get a little bit of a bounce off of here. If it turns out that the numbers are really bad and then this support breaks, probably get a pretty meaningful lower, because I don't really see any thing that looks like it could be support in between here and levels that are kind of much lower. But I think the main takeaway here is the stock is down, and where is it kind of stabilizing? And the answer is kind of like right here around a former support level.
And then Apple, Mark.
Well, Apple is really overbought, and it could be on the verge of this breakout, but it also could be on the verge of a false breakout, because as we've seen, the internals are really deteriorating, right? And Apple is actually, I'm sorry, I was thinking of Microsoft is what's breaking out. But so the money is flowing out of most of the market, and it's coming into just a few of these big names. So when that is done, then the only place Apple can go is down.
Right.
So if we look at some of these other sectors, well, let's look at if we look at technology, really overstretched here. All right, getting close to what could be a resistance level. We know there tends to be resistance at former resistance levels. If we look at the equal weighted Qs, we can see most stocks are actually going down, right? It's because of the way the benchmark is constructed, all this money is going into Apple and Microsoft and the big ones. And if your money's there, then that's fine. That's a good place to be. But you got to just be careful, because this stuff could reverse really quickly. This is what happened at the end of 2021 when we started to get these divergences. I mean, look at healthcare. Healthcare, that obviously doesn't look very strong. Financials, pretty neutral. Still kind of hanging around this 3360 level. Consumer discretionary, trading below resistance. Industrials looked like they were kind of getting close to resistance level there. So basically the market is, it's with the exception of tech, most things look pretty either neutral to weak.
Mm-hmm.
And within tech, it looks weak in the sense that it's starting to get overstretched and is starting to get close to a resistance level. So we got to understand the mechanics or what's going on here, right? When markets get to tops, people start to worry. And the traditional flight to safety is, oh, gee, we're going to sell our stocks and we're going to buy gold. Well, that's the old days, right? That was 50 years ago when people would buy gold and put it in their house. A different type of flight to safety would be, I got like 10 different tech stocks, and they're starting to go down and blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to sell these 10 stocks, and I'm just going to take my money and I'm going to put it into Microsoft, or I'm going to put it into Apple, because those traditionally are the really, the safe bets. And this is exactly the same action that now we're not at a multi-year bull market high like we were back then. So it's not to the same degree, but it's the same principle. Once this rotation out of the stuff that appears less risky to this, or out of the stuff that appears more risky to the stuff that appears less risky, well, the market eventually just kind of runs out of buyers, and at that point, the only place it can go is lower.
Excellent.
So I think we are seeing some of that now. Yeah, I mean, we just looked at the sectors, right? Did we miss any? Oh, wait about XLC.
You didn't look at XLU either, or I. Of course, you don't normally do.
See XLC, here we're getting close to resistance. So there's a lot of resistance overhead in this and in consumer discretionary. Tech is stretched out. Financials look kind of neutral to bearish. Healthcare looks kind of neutral to bearish. It just seems to me like the market's going to just kind of set up for a move lower here. Yeah, here's our bank stocks. Really no rebound here. The banks look pretty weak. I mean, so the market's talking to us. So the banks look weak. And if interest rates continue to hold, and now interest rates are starting to kind of go into a little bit of an uptrend again here. So this will be bearish for the market. See? I mean, doesn't seem like a lot.
But it is.
4.5. But from a relative point of view, it could be meaningful. So if this starts to make another run up here, then that's just going to be bearish for equity. So you got your, what do we look at now? We just look at how we've been really focusing on the financials, and I still think we really need to pay attention to the banks. But I think right now the main thing to watch now is back to the tech sector here, and just how overstretched some of this stuff is. I mean, even if the market is bullish, right? Even if the market's going to be higher in a month or two from now, well, things just don't go in straight lines. Right. There's going to be some kind of profit taking. I mean, a market doesn't make a move of 12% in a matter of days without there being some kind of profit taking. It's just almost bound to happen. Right. After this resistance, we were only there for 3 days, and then we kind of blew right through it. But anyway, so that's what I'm watching now. Is just the overstretchedness. Basically, the market looks either neutral to bearish. Actually, I would even say tech does look kind of bearish just because it's overbought and stretched out. All right, so I'm going to go read about the sex cult over here. You guys have an office here in Stanford, I think.
That's not good. Listen, you stay away from that place. We don't need you delving into that kind of world. Besides, Kate would probably be upset.
How does a cult become defunct?
They probably got found out, and I mean, well, they
stopped paying their taxes.
Maybe they got too old and they couldn't perform anymore because they were the research and the testers.
There is a firm called More Capital. Let's see.
Wow, there's videos on YouTube. I'm gonna have to go down this rabbit hole with you, I guess.
Nexium. So there's this firm now. There's this firm called a personal development company. I guess it all depends on what you're
trying to develop.
Yeah, what your definition of development is.
Yep.
There is this firm here now. This is what I've heard. I'm not making any kind of suggestions because I don't want to get sued. But supposedly these guys have some pretty freaky deaky stuff going on in some of their parties. Like if you go to work there, you got to sign all these NDAs and everything.
See, people see too many movies, man, and then they get this money and they're bored and they got to find some way to make it just really weird.
Yeah. I don't know. I wouldn't want to work around a bunch of those people. They're kind of weird.
Adobe is at interesting levels there, Heather. You better watch your stuff. She's pretty well on the money mark. She'd be killing it.
Start watching my stuff, dude. Yeah, it's still getting a little bit overstretched there as well. Oh wait, so it's down just a little bit though. Yeah. Not too much.
Thank you guys. But we appreciate you.
Yeah. All right, we'll be back tomorrow.
Thank you for your time. I'm going to actually be out. I've got an appointment that I can't get out of tomorrow, but Mark will be here. And guys, thank you very much. And if you get a chance, take a look at this options course that we have prepared for you. It's right here. That's the link that you need, and enjoy a beautiful day.